Hi, I'm Chris Brown.
I fell in love with that person. That's embarrassing.
You are going to be placed on formal felony probation for a period of 60 months.
I felt it was time that you heard directly from me that I am sorry.
Then I really hit her. I with a closed fist, like I punched her.
I mean, it's not really a big deal to me now as far as that situation. I think I'm past that in my life.
If I love you, ain't nobody gonna have you. I'm gonna make you miserable.
Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Let's Get Into It podcast. Today we're doing a deep dive into Chris Brown, which I know can be triggering because he's got a huge fan base. You guys know him as the R&B superstar, but behind the platinum records and the Billboard hits lies a trail of chaos, controversy, and criminal behavior that the industry would rather sweep under the rug. Up until now, I mean, at a time where R. Kelly and Diddy, they're behind bars, why is Chris just getting a pass? From shocking attacks to disturbing patterns of ABUSE, we're pulling back the curtain on the man who somehow keeps dodging accountability. This is going to be a heavy episode because we're going to talk about stories that you know of. I mean, when he attacked Rihanna, which I still can't believe he got away with this, but also stories you have not heard before. Maybe society has shifted and there's starting to be more accountability. I'm just questioning how many more people must Chris hurt until we pay attention to him. There's going to be a lot of information in this episode, but let's go ahead and start off with his childhood. Where did Chris come from? Now, you guys know I love keeping my leather belts in perfect shape, and that's why I'm so excited about Cure, the ultimate way to protect and preserve leather goods. We maintain our shoes and our cars, so why not care for leather the same way? With Cure, your favorite leather pieces last a lifetime, helping you preserve value if you ever decide to resell. In a world filled with overconsumption, taking care of what we already own just makes sense. There's a limited supply available, so don't wait. Head to mycure.com to get your leather care kit today. That's MYCUIRE.com. The best way to make your leather goods last forever. Now, Chris was born May 5th, 1989 in Tappahannock, Virginia, which actually is kind of close to where I grew up. I was born in Fairfax, Virginia. I believe my grandmother lived like the city over from Tappahannock, so I was around that environment. Actually, growing up, I remember going to Kings Dominion, which is a, well, side story, but is an amusement park in Virginia because I love roller coasters. And one time I was there, I was waiting for the best ride. And as I was waiting there, they started to clear out the roller coaster, which was terrible because I was waiting there for so long. I was the next ride up until I realized that security was coming in and they actually brought Chris Brown onto there. I'll never forget. He had like Trey Songz with him. He had his mom with him and they were just like taking over the amusement park. I actually went on the ride right after him, but that's my little Chris Brown story because we kind of grew up in the same country, Virginia area. I mean, Fairfax isn't too country, but where he grew up was the middle of nowhere in my opinion. But after Chris taught himself to sing and dance, he started to participate in local talent shows. He also was a part of his church choir. His mother actually recognized her son's gifts and she pushed him into the music industry, getting a deal at 13 years old. Now, I don't know if this was a theme back then, like, you know, with Justin Bieber and other celebrities, but 13 seems so young to sign a kid. It is such a crucial period in their development, them trying to figure out who they are, and now they've got an album to produce. I just don't know why they wouldn't wait a couple of years until he's like 16 or maybe 18. So his mother Joyce was a big part of putting him out there and letting him perform and showcase his talents because Chris was drawn to do this. Here's a clip of Chris performing at a local talent show.
I know we can do it, it's wild and out, it's scary, talking about how we're feeling.
Now, while Chris had a supportive mother there to help him pursue his dreams, his family life wasn't all too stable. I feel like everyone comes from somewhat of a dysfunctional background. I mean, whether it's like a high degree or a low degree, we all kind of have our past trauma, especially getting into these different celebrities on this channel. I could recognize like Jada Pinkett Smith. We just saw how she went through it as a kid, which kind of explains her behavior now. And that's what I want you guys to go in with as far as a mindset or perspective, because I do think that these kind of behaviors, it's a cycle. So if Chris grew up in a terrible environment or an environment that was violent, maybe it's all he really ever got to know. Chris was 7 years old when his father Clinton and his mother Joyce divorced. Chris's aunt said that his mom and dad, they had a great relationship. One day they were all together and then, it all fell apart, which this is the, Aunt Christine's perspective. But after Clinton was out of the picture, Joyce moved on and had a new man. So Chris and his sister were expected to go and move in in there with them. But Chris and Latrell had no idea it was going to lead to his stepfather being physical with his mother, watching his mother being attacked by her new husband for years. Chris elaborated on his stepfather's behavior in his 2017 documentary, Welcome to My Life. He said he takes it out on his girl, and his girl happens to be my mom. This is what I had to deal with. I had to hear my mom get beat up every night. He was a monster, animal, pure hatred, evil. I'm sure, like you guys, I love my mom. I can't imagine someone trying to attack my mom. If someone tried to attack my mom, I would have literally kill them. Like, I mean, just put it out there right now. Like, if you try to come for my mom. So I can't imagine the anger and just the uncomfortability that Chris felt feeling his mom attacked by this man who's not even his father. Like, disturbing. To give you guys some context, his stepfather's name is Donnell. And Chris, while he did witness this for so long, he did eventually stand up to Donnell. It actually got extremely messy at one point where there was a weapon involved. In one story, I guess Donnell attempted to unalive himself, in which he did shoot himself in the head. This is like already a lot to deal with. You already have this like abusive Donnell man, and then he's doing way too much with this weapon. It sounds incredibly toxic. Here's a news clip that breaks it all down.
I made a foolish attempt by getting a gun and threatening to shoot myself.
Chris Brown claims that in an act of attempted suicide, his former stepfather, Donnell Hawkins, shot himself in the head. But Donnell claims the gun went off by accident.
And it was only a threat, so I put the gun, on myself, and it went off.
Wait, okay, why? Okay, first off, I get, like, if the gun went off, it was an accident. But why is he sitting here over here, taking a weapon and putting it to his head, threatening to take his own life? Like, what is going on here?
It wasn't a suicide attempt.
Of his former stepfather's blindness, Chris said, quote, "When you're blind, your senses are heightened. But he used to hit my mom. I remember one night he made her nose bleed." But Chris claimed the abuse at home got so bad that he...
Wait, so I wonder if, like, so Chris alludes to this man having a lot of anger built up and taking it out on his mom. I wonder if part of this is because he attempted to unalive himself. He had to live with this injury and...
vowed to kill Donnell by the time he was 15.
Okay, that got really heavy really quick. Let's just take a little step back. After being discovered at the age of 13 and releasing his debut self-titled album at 16, Chris experienced a huge rise in the world of R&B. His father Clinton has been quoted saying, as a father, he couldn't be more proud of Chris, saying that he's the light of his life. Despite releasing over 10 albums and winning a Grammy, he has had a lot of low points within the music industry. His problems really began back in 2009 when he attacked his then girlfriend Rihanna. Let's shift gears and talk about Rihanna, because hearing that Chris wanted to unalive his stepfather at the age of 15, you would think that he really has a disdain for men who get physical with women, watching his mother battered for so many years. So then what was going on in February 2009 when he went on to attack Rihanna in a similar fashion? Headlines read that Chris Brown punched Rihanna and threatened to unalive her. A detective's report alleged that Rihanna's attack revealed disturbing details about what happened between her and her then boyfriend, Chris Brown. According to a search warrant in the case, Rihanna read a 3-page text message from a woman on Chris Brown's phone, which led to an argument. Chris Brown then tried to attack his girlfriend by forcing her out of the Lamborghini and hit her head against the passenger window. Now, to set the scene, before they got into this car, before this attack happened, Chris and Rihanna were attending a pre-Grammy party hosted by Clive Davis, a man who's super problematic. Go and watch my main channel, Sloan, to go hear more about him. If you guys want a deep dive podcast, let me know in the comments below. He could be the one you guys can go ahead and blame for Diddy and that mess. But the incident occurred after they left the event. While driving through the Hancock Park neighborhood in LA, they got into a heated argument in a rented car. Their argument led to this violent altercation, which we all saw blasted in the headlines with really haunting photos. The report claims that Rihanna turned to face Chris Brown and he punched her in the left eye with his right hand. He then drove away in the vehicle and continued to punch her in the face with his right hand while steering the vehicle in his left hand, which I actually know where Hancock Park is. It's a very quiet neighborhood, so there's not a lot of cars on the road. The neighborhood's in particular really no cars, especially for being in LA. So I could totally see him getting away with doing this and swerving and just making a fool of himself. Here's a clip of Chris describing this incident for himself in his own words.
I remember she tried to kick me. It's just her just being upset, but then I really hit her. with a closed fist, like I punched her, you know, and it busted her lip.
Even hearing him talk about this, it's just so like, it's eerie because it's almost something like he could just recall, like it was like, you know, last Tuesday, like this happened there. Again, his body language does seem uncomfortable, but at the same time, his language, he's able to just spit it out, probably because he's retold this story many times. And essentially the goal of that documentary was to rehumanize Chris and to get his reputation back on track. So they were going to edit it and have him say whatever they wanted him to, again, taking accountability, but trying to switch up the narrative. Chris told Rihanna, "I'm going to beat the S out of you when we get home, you wait and see." Rihanna then called her assistant and left a message saying, "I'm on my way home, make sure the cops are there when I get there." The police notes say that prompted Chris to reply, "You just did the stupidest thing ever, now I'm going to unalive you." The report also says that Chris Brown bit Rihanna and put her in a headlock and she almost lost consciousness. Chris resumed punching Rihanna and she interlocked her fingers behind her head and brought her elbows forward to protect her face. She then bent over at the waist, placing her elbows and face near her lap in an attempt to protect her face and head from the punches left from. And Chris is like a strong guy. Rihanna, this is so disgusting. I really like, makes me so mad because I can't imagine a man getting physical with a woman. Like, side note, I do some pretty heavy lifting and I'll bring my friends with me, like my girlfriends. And, you know, I can see it's hard for them to lift 10 pounds because they're not strong because they're a girl. Like, I get it, you're a woman. So when I think about like this man, Chris, just like punching Rihanna, it's like, you don't really realize too the strength that some people have, that like that's incredibly destructive, and we saw that in the photos. Eventually, Rihanna began screaming for help and Chris got out of the car. A nearby resident heard the calls for help and called 911. Chris Brown was sentenced to 5 years probation and 180 days of community labor. He had to go on to take some DV classes and pay fines, yet I have to say, I don't think a lot of this stuck with him. Chris was ordered to stay at least 50 yards away from Rihanna except at industry events. That's 10 yards away, despite a request from Rihanna's lawyer for a less restrictive order. Chris was also ordered not to have any contact with her, which includes phone, email, or text communications. Here's a clip of when Chris Brown was sentenced.
Mr. Brown, imposition of sentence is suspended. You are going to be placed on formal felony probation for a period of 60 months.
It's 5 years probation and 6 months community labor for Chris Brown for his beating of Rihanna. The sentence handed down Tuesday by LA Superior Court Judge Patricia Snag, as she also warned the R&B singer to stay away from his ex-girlfriend for 5 years. Brown got a year of domestic violence counseling as well, and he
I'm trying to decipher, what do you look at his, if you guys are not listening on Spotify and Apple, which if you guys did not know, you guys can go and listen to this podcast on Spotify or Apple if you're in the car, on the go. But if you're looking at this photo, this visual of his face right now, he looks a little sad, a little cocky in a way too, maybe a little dissociated. Maybe it's just dissociation what I'm seeing here, because I do see some discomfort, fear in his eyebrows with him raising his eyes, but his eyes look so jaded and his mouth is a little bit tight, which kind of gives me the understanding that he's like not fully given in. Like, I feel like when you're weak and you're like vulnerable and he's like, oh, distraught, you've got like a more loose mouth. Not me over here being a body language expert trying to decipher. After completing his year-long DV course in 2010, he posted onto Twitter, "I have enough self-respect and decency to be proud of accomplishing this DV class. Boys run from their mistakes, men learn from them." I really wish Chris did learn from his mistakes then, but I think that this behavior is enrooted within him. And it's been so difficult for Rihanna to just kind of like move forward with this. For years, she was asked about this and had to revisit it. And it's so traumatic and it happened in front of everyone. So we're kind of like always looking at her for her next move or response to this matter in particular. I think it's part of the reason why she's moved out of music and gotten more into the brands and just a little bit disconnected from her stardom. It's like kind of like Beyonce. You don't really hear much from them. We see more Rihanna than we do Beyonce, but I don't think she's going to get personal anytime soon. Not after all of this.
This happened to me and it can happen to anybody. There are a lot of women who've experienced what I did, but not in the public. So it made it really difficult. I just felt like, oh my God, here goes my little bit of privacy.
Also, you have to understand, like, she's in it deep with Chris Brown. So, like, all this happens publicly, then she cannot talk to him because the entire world would witness it if it were to happen. And while I agree, like, yeah, don't talk to him, being in that situation, it's like sometimes it, like, you just went from being a happy couple to within an hour, you can never speak to this person again and they're charged and the whole world knows about this. It's like they probably did want to talk to each other and just kind of figure out, like, why did this even get to this point? I mean, again, Chris did this.
Why be ashamed?
Because I didn't want people to think that that's the kind of person I fell in love with that person. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing that that's the type of person that I fell in love with.
So clearly Rihanna was feeling a lot of shame over this incident, but it seems like Chris went into trying to fix his reputation. His team went into crisis mode, trying to make it clear that he's not this monster that beat up Rihanna, even though he is. I'm actually surprised looking back on the content that they were releasing then. I feel like we were in a different time as far as social media where celebrities were posting a little bit more. I know that sounds weird to think when, like, we've got everyone posting TikTok and things like this, but I feel like they felt more of an obligation to go and post these videos and to make these statements because it was their avenue to go and get their story straight when it came to the media coverage. And of course, Chris tried everything he could to make himself look better.
Hi, I'm Chris Brown. Since February, my attorney has advised me not to speak out, even though ever since the incident, I wanted to publicly express my deepest regret and accept full responsibility. Although I would do some interviews and answer some questions in the future, I felt it was time that you heard directly from me that I am sorry.
Wait, the response here, he's reading off a teleprompter, which makes it sound really inauthentic.
I have tried to live my life in a way which can make those around me proud of me, and until recently, I think I was doing a pretty good job. I wish I had the chance to live those few moments again, but unfortunately I can't. I cannot go into what happened, and most importantly, I'm not going to sit here and make any excuses. I take great pride in me being able to exercise self-control, and what I did was inexcusable. I am very sad and very ashamed of what I've done. My mother and my spiritual teachers have taught me way better than that. I have told Rihanna countless times, and I'm telling you today, that I am truly, truly sorry, and that I wasn't able to handle the situation both differently and better.
I hated that video. I mean, it seems like he had a gun pointed to his head and he was forced to say this. It was so inauthentic. I really would have appreciated if he just spoke from his heart and said, like, what he was feeling, but no, he had a perfectly curated message for him to read. You could literally see his eyes moving. If you know me, you know I'm obsessed with keeping my leather belt looking flawless. That's why I want to tell you about Curé, the ultimate solution for protecting and preserving leather goods so they look amazing and last a lifetime. Think about it, we take care of our shoes, cars, and even our skin, so why not give leather the same love? Leather accessories are an investment, and Curé makes sure they stay in pristine condition. Whether it's your go-to bag or luxury wallet, Curé helps you preserve them to their maximum value, perfect if you ever plan to resell. And with gift giving season coming around the corner, you want to make sure those nice gifts that you get are going to last. In a world where overconsumption is everywhere, it feels good to invest in things that last. Curé's leather care kit makes that easy. By taking care of what we already own, we extend their lifetime and avoid unnecessary waste. Plus, nothing beats keeping a favorite leather piece looking as good as the day you got it. There's a limited supply available, so don't wait. Head to mycure.com to get your leather care kit today. That's mycure.com. The best way to make your leather goods last forever. This incident was huge not only for Rihanna but for Chris as well. In 2011, a couple years after the incident, he actually had a breakdown backstage. The singer allegedly blew up in his dressing room during a commercial break and threw a chair at a window overlooking Times Square. He confronted several members of the show's production staff and exited the building shirtless, and it's because he was asked about this incident with Rihanna. Now we're going to watch this interview very carefully. You could tell he's aggravated by the question. You could see him start getting kind of like impulsive, like he has a violent response to things he does not like. And the look that he gave the camera at the end really tells it all.
Have you all seen each other, been around each other?
I mean, not really. I mean, it's not really a big deal to me now as far as that situation. I think I'm past that in my life, and I think today is the album day, so that's what I'm focused on. So everybody go get that album.
And that is something that we are here to talk about, but thank you very much for willing to do that.
Shortly after this interview, it wasn't a great look that he got a new tattoo on his neck. And when fans saw this tattoo, guys, this is so sick. It looks like almost like a mimic of like the picture of Rihanna that we've all seen, which we're not including in this episode for various reasons, but there's a photo of her when she was attacked and she's super bruised up on her side, and you can tell her eye was punched. And in this tattoo, it looks like he's almost recreating this image on his neck, which is not only really disrespectful, but so creepy, like psychopath vibes. But again, his reps put out a statement saying, no, it's actually a skull, like a Mexican skull, to celebrate the Day of the Dead. And that's what he was trying to mimic there. But like looking at it, especially in some of these photos from the red carpet, it looks like he's trolling Rihanna. That following year, Chris violated his restraining order against Rihanna by attending a Halloween party dressed as an Islamic terrorist. What is going on here? So wait, what? He was dressed as an Islamic terrorist. Rihanna was also present at the party, which was a violation of the restraining order taken out against Chris Brown in the wake of the attack. Now, question below to the lawyers or just anyone that knows. So if you have a restraining order against someone, let's say, so Rihanna has one against Chris, right? What if Chris is at the party before? Does he have to leave? Like, does the court order that he has to leave, or then is Rihanna at fault for then going to a party that Chris was at? I just don't quite understand how that would work. So comment below, like, even if it's your best guess, like comment below. And actually in the Spotify app, you can comment if you're streaming there. Not me trying to get my Spotify numbers up, but if you guys took a second and you went and rated it, I would really appreciate it. You guys might see this on video soon. But look at this picture. So stupid. Where's his PR team that wrote his BS statement? Like, why aren't they here to go and say, hey, Chris, maybe this is a little bit tasteless? I mean, and look at the weapon up in the air too. Wow, they really had fun with it, huh? The caption on Instagram, which collected 77,000 likes, read, ain't nobody effing with my click. Nobody messing with his click. I guess he's made that very clear. And that goes for Drake as well. I'm trying to shift gears here, but you guys know Rihanna and Drake have had a friendship over the years, and Chris and Drake have their own relationship. June 14th, 2012, Chris Brown was involved in a New York City nightclub brawl. 8 people were injured in this brawl involving Drake, Chris Brown, NBA star Tony Parker, and various members of their entourage. Chris Brown later made a diss record about Drake, and Chris Brown's attorney claimed that Drake was the instigator of the brawl. Though the pair did later appear together in a comedic skit at the 2014 ESPY Awards, which is a sports awards show, so it looks like they made up. But going back to this fight in New York City, this is such a bad time in Chris's life. Like, when everyone's accusing him of being violent, this happens. Reports claim that Chris Brown sustained a nasty gash on his chin, apparently a wound from a bottle attack after his entourage allegedly clashed with Drake's crew. TMZ confirmed with NYPD that 5 people were injured in this incident. They arrived on the scene after receiving a call between 4 and 5 a.m. And of course, Drake and Chris fled the scene before cops arrived. We're told both Chris and Drake were hanging out in the VIP section when Drake began pointing and yelling at Chris Brown, probably because he doesn't like him for beating up Rihanna. Chris began yelling back. That's when members of both entourages rushed in and began shoving each other. With tensions running high, someone threw a bottle, which set the whole thing off, which turned shoving into punches. Thank God there weren't any weapons there. We're told club security rushed to break up the fight and called for police. Multiple members of both crews required medical assistance. Can you imagine, like, Drake leaves, Chris leaves, and then their crews are left behind, like, riding in the EMTs together? We're told the club suffered some serious damage in the fight, including busted up tables, broken mirrors, shattered lighting, and glass scratches all over the floor.
After Brown and Drake's fight in NYC last year, Entertainment Enterprises, the company who owns Greenhouse nightclub, sued the rapper and singer for $16 million after their bottle throwing incident went down. But now, just 1 year later, a judge has ruled that Drake and Chris don't owe a dime to the nightclub. According to TMZ, the judge claimed that Drake and Chris had, quote, no duty to the club to behave, especially because their brawl didn't even occur on Greenhouse's premises. The fight took place at Whip, a club close by, but both venues ended up losing their license to serve alcohol. Entertainment Enterprises claimed that Greenhouse took a major hit after the altercation.
Now, as I alluded to earlier, it seems like these two made up. And that was evident when Chris Brown invited Drake to come into his music video for his 2019 song No Guidance, where he parodied the brawl brawl. Obviously, he didn't make it exactly how it was. We didn't destroy the club. They made it into a dance battle. But this pretty much solidified that these two were cool and that Drake was, I guess, over the Rihanna thing as well. Let's react to a short clip of this together.
He told me to tell you that you were the type to Instagram your breakfast in the morning.
No, I don't. So it looks like this kid is like speaking for Drake, like reading off some, some reads. He's being shady.
He told me to tell you, you the type to text a girl I'm cute in person.
I got it.
Interesting.
So what's it gonna be? A dance battle!
So it's interesting that they have this person in between them, like obviously this child, because I wonder if this is, again, like a kind of a mimic of what happened there, that there was another person who was like between them that kind of instigated this fight. Another celebrity that Chris Brown has feuded with is Frank Ocean. Frank actually claims that he was called the F slur during a brawl with Chris Brown. Frank Ocean told police he was called a faggot during his brawl with, I can say it because I'm one, with Chris Brown moments before Chris threatened to shoot him. According to the report, Frank Ocean told police Chris Brown punched him in the face after Frank told Chris that Chris had taken his parking spot. So they were both at the studio and Frank was like, hey man, this is where I'm parking. And Chris was like, no. And that's where the fight took place over a parking space. Very Karen-esque. Frank told police Chris tried to shake his hand, but Frank refused, telling Chris that he was in his parking spot. Frank claimed that that's when Chris punched him in the face. According to the report, Frank said that two of Chris's goons, then jumped in to help. Chris pushed him into a corner and attempted to kick him. That's when Frank, who revealed last year that he had once had a romantic relationship with a man, also believed he heard the F slur yelled, but he's unsure who made the statement. Could have been Chris. Cops also say that Frank told them that Chris threatened to shoot him, saying, we can bust on you too. Frank told police the whole fight lasted about 2 to 3 minutes. Frank suffered a cut to his right index finger, a cut on his left temple, but he refused medical treatment on the scene, but then later was taken to a hospital. This report suggests that Chris Brown's buddy cornered Frank and pinned him up against a wall, while Chris was trying to beat the living crap out of him. Frank fought back, throwing elbows and punches of his own. Over a parking spot, people. I cannot believe this. This witness said, I don't know what kind of demons Chris is facing, but I hope he clears them and finds a new life rooted in love and light. I get it. Parking can be a especially out here in LA. But the fact that Chris resorts to violence so quickly is what is so scary, and that he's in such a position of power that he's got these people that'll do whatever he says as soon as he says it. Now, Frank Ocean did not want to press any charges against Chris Brown for the fight, but Frank did tell police in private he wanted to see Chris Brown in jail.
Well, the news is out that Chris was at Westlake Studio in LA, and as he was leaving, Frank Ocean and his crew blocked Chris. According to sources, Frank said, "This is my studio, this is my parking spot." We're told Chris went to shake Frank's hand, and that's when one of Frank's people attacked Chris.
Now, if you guys were paying attention to that last clip, you'd hear there was some misreporting, or at least some misunderstanding, because that woman claimed that then one of Frank's people then attacked Chris, but that's not what Frank is saying. Frank is saying that Chris attacked him. So let's go ahead and hear what Chris has to say about this fight. Maybe he'll provide us some clarity in this interview.
Was it really over a parking space, or as much as you could talk about it?
Well, with the Frank Ocean situation, I just put it like this. It's in the past. You know, some stuff went down, but
everything's just in the past for him. How convenient.
It's not what people, you know, it's always a misconception.
Sensationalized.
It's always sensationalized and always blown out of proportion. You know, I got respect for his music. I got respect for everybody else. So, you know, I ain't really trying to, you know, go back down that route. Everything for me is moving forward. I do my music now, so I'm good. Everyone who's problematic just wants to move forward. Like, is this a theme? It's easy to move past when you just don't want to answer for any of your actions. But you guys may remember he got in trouble for beating up Rihanna. Maybe he didn't get in trouble for Frank Ocean or the Drake thing, but he got in trouble for Rihanna, and he didn't fulfill his orders. I mean, he was ordered to community service and other things. We talked about him breaking the violation, the
the restriction because he went to that party for Halloween where Rihanna was there, which again, I'm still confused. Like, who's at fault if one person went to the event first? One thing I am not confused about is that Chris Brown actually faked his community service. He was exposed for doing this, which again just shows me that celebrities don't take any of these things seriously. They're just above the law. Documents filed by the LA County District Attorney allege that Chris Brown falsified the community service hours he was supposed to perform. There's a bunch of discrepancies in the countings of dates and times for Chris Brown's community labor, as well as missing documentation for those dates. For example, the motion states that Chris Brown was flying to Cancun, Mexico on March 15th, 2012, when the Richmond Police Department reported that he was picking up trash. So Virginia saying, hey, no, we've got him here doing community service, yet he's out here in Mexico and there's flight records to prove it. The motion also included 3 potential probation violations, including an altercation outside a California recording studio, the Frank Ocean one, multiple instances of testing positive for marijuana, and failure to obtain a travel permit. There's also the incident where he threw a chair at a window in 2012 at the Good Morning America studios. So these 3 incidents also count as violations, and yet there's no consequences. Let's do a little check-in with you guys. So at this point in the podcast, do you think that Chris Brown learned from Rihanna in the instance that like he won't get into that kind of relationship again with a woman? Comment below. Do you think he did? Well, I've got an answer for you guys. No, he did not. Which brings us to his ex, Karrueche Tran. In 2017, Chris Brown is ordered to stay away from his ex-girlfriend, Karrueche. A judge granted the model a restraining order against him for the next 5 years. So I guess until, would that be like 2022? Hopefully she got another one. She testified in court telling them that Chris Brown demanded that she return diamond rings he had gifted her, which she refused. Which, hold on to your rings, girl. If it was a gift, then you keep it. But he became aggressive after that. And you guys know what happens when Chris Brown gets aggressive. He threatened her. I can get my money back and I'm tired of playing games. B word, I will beat the S out of you. Which he says that a lot. Every person he says, I'm going to beat the out of you. I promise I will make your life hell, he says. People obtained court documents in which Karrueche alleged that Chris had threatened to kill her over these text messages and threatened to shoot her. What a sicko. Around the second week of February, which, it seems like in February is like the time where things go down. So every February, just keep your eye out for Chris Brown. He told a few people that he was going to unalive her. Imagine going around and like casually telling people, yeah, I'm going to go and kill my ex. Kind of reminds you of that SZA song. I just killed my ex. Not the best idea. Not the best idea. Quote, he said, if no one else can have me, then he's going to take me out, which sounds like a Diddy statement. She also alleges that Chris punched her in the stomach twice, pushed her down the stairs, but at that point, she never filed a police report. These incidents would have occurred while he was on probation for his attack against Rihanna in 2009, which could have put him right back in jail.
Brown slapped with a temporary restraining order by ex Karrueche Tran. A judge granted Tran's request after she accused Brown of abusing and threatening her. ET has the court docs. In them, Tran says the singer punched her twice in the stomach and pushed her down the stairs years ago. She also claims that earlier this month, Brown threatened to kill her.
How many more women need to be harmed by Chris until we get it? A really bizarre moment happened in 2018. There were these photos going around of Chris strangling a woman. He claims that this was done in fun, not violence. Guys, take a moment and just hear what I said to you guys. There's photos of him strangling someone and he's saying this is for fun. Let's really decipher what we're looking at. We've got a photograph taken outside. Chris's face doesn't even look like Chris. Like, can we do a zoom in editor onto his face? I mean, it doesn't even really look like him. I don't know if he's on so many drugs or what. I cannot tell who this woman is. I don't know if we have that information. Well, first off, Chris is choking this woman and she's got her hand over his hand, which is kind of like alluding that she's trying to release it. And then we've got, and I think this is very important, this secondary woman over here with the white nails. She got her white nails done for the summertime. She's over here trying to stop it. You can see her left arm is pushing Chris away. I can't really tell where her right arm is landing. It looks like it's kind of in motion to then pull these two apart from each other, alluding that this isn't something fun. Chris Brown is facing backlash after photos of him with his hands around a woman's throat were posted on social media. The photos were taken Monday at a home that he was renting for Ultra Fest. You can see in the photos he's grabbing the woman's throat and tilts her back as her friend appears to intervene. Now, Chris Brown's attorney put out a statement saying that she's a friend. It's obviously playful, as she confirmed. Whoever invaded their privacy will be held accountable. So Chris Brown is unhinged. When looking at Karrueche's social media, you'll see that when she posted a photo of herself with another man, he decided to go and comment, saying, "No shade, boo, but please style him. He looks like he's shopping off a mannequin and trying to bargain with the sales manager. Retired wrestler Spanx, I'm effing around, God bless. No shade, just minor." So he's clearly upset and very bothered that his ex has moved on. It's just really embarrassing how he operates. I mean, even when he was in the mix of dating Karrueche, he actually released a song which was about Rihanna, talking about how he wanted Rihanna back in his life when he's already in a new relationship with Karrueche, who he can't seem to get over her either. So he just wants it all. The song is titled She Ain't You, which sounds terrible for Karrueche because it's like, wait, so I'm not her, I can never be her. He sings, "You make it hard for me to see somebody else. I'm calling her your name. Yeah, it's messed up because I'm thinking about you. It's not your fault, babe. I never wanted us to break up. No, it's not this way, but you don't understand it, girl. When she touches me, I'm wishing that it were your hands. When I'm with her, it's only about the sex. With you, I had a bad romance, and if I could trade her in, I would, because nobody compares to you, Rihanna." He doesn't say Rihanna, but he might as well. He goes on to say, "Every day that I'm with her, all I want is you. I want to leave, but I'm afraid that you don't even feel the same. And now I realize she's not you." The chorus goes like, "Oh, na, na, oh, na, na." Kind of like how Rihanna's song, "What's My Name" goes. So she's like, "Oh, na, na, what's my name? What's my name? What's my name?" Wendy Williams, who we love. Why did I almost say rest in peace? Oh, knock on wood. We do not want any rest in peace out here. But Rihanna, Wendy, we love her. And she actually has covered Chris Brown before and talking about Karrueche and how Chris Brown just wouldn't leave her alone.
So Karrueche's very upset about all this. And Chris just will not stop bothering her. So finally, Karrueche decides, I'm leaving the club. TMZ got the footage of Chris following Karrueche out of the club and forcing his way into her Uber car. Crazy. So Karrueche's getting in an Uber with her friends. Chris is badgering her. And Karrueche's telling her, "Chris, leave us alone, leave us alone." Chris pushes one of her friends out of the way and gets in the Uber. And the reason that Karrueche didn't complain about that is because she didn't want to make any more of a scene than that was already going on. So after Karrueche does finish hanging out with her friends, she decides to go back to her house, where all night long she's hearing, "Where you at? Where you at?" To the point where the neighbors had to call the cops.
Karrueche then made a statement that Chris Brown, her ex, was stalking her, which is pretty valid. I mean, he seems like he is stalking her. Chris Brown is, of course, super impulsive, and he decided to reply via Snapchat. Here is a clip of his messy reply.
"If I love you, ain't nobody gonna have you. I'm gonna make you miserable. I'm gonna chase that out. I'm gonna chase your ass around. And it's done." Ladies, y'all ever dealt with a that just be like blowing y'all shit up, hopping gates, stalking the out you, getting on your nerves? Well, I'm one of them. If I love you, ain't nobody gonna have you. That.
He's literally scary. I feel like any woman that goes on a date with Chris Brown watched this episode before just to understand the danger that you could be in. Now we're going to go through a bunch of other crimes that he's been involved in, and I really want you guys to listen to what I'm saying here in the sense of like, don't go numb to it. I feel like when we hear so many crimes over and over again, we're just like, oh yeah, it's just like we get used to it. Don't let this desensitize you. In 2013, he was arrested for felony assault. It happened in Washington, D.C., where I'm actually from and where I'll be going very soon. Well, Virginia, D.C. It's like I'm from the area where it's like 20 minutes to D.C. So, you know, D.C. is the big city. That's what we claim. But he and his bodyguard, Christopher, were involved in a physical altercation with two men outside the W Hotel. According to police, a spokeswoman said that Chris and his bodyguard spent 36 hours in jail. This happened about 4:30 in the morning, which why are you guys even up? I'm in bed at like 10 p.m. at the latest. We don't have any details of what led up to this assault or who the man Chris attacked was. I'm assuming it's not a public figure. Ultimately, Chris lost and was ordered to stay 100 yards away from this man, which at this point, he's going to need a whole list of like a Find My Friends app to know where he can and cannot go because all these people he needs to stay away from. In 2013, we saw Chris enter rehab. He voluntarily entered rehab only to be kicked out for violent behavior. Holy crap. So he entered rehab in October, but then was kicked out mid-November because of violence. Chris repeatedly smashed his mother's car window with a rock during a family session, per his probation officer. So he's obviously got some really built up anger towards his family. He was sentenced to 3 months to live in anger management rehab facility. Wow. Because he went into this facility, he had medical staff to go and assess him. Now, I don't know why we learned this information. I'm assuming that maybe his team thinks it's a way to humanize him or to explain some of his behavior, because it's revealed in 2014 he has bipolar and PTSD. Now, the facility actually reported that they believe that his past behavior stemmed from his attempts to self-medicate his troubles, that he never really learned coping skills when it came to his anger, so he would get messed up and then get violent. And I think maybe in this controlled environment he was doing all right, but when March came about, he was kicked out for violating the facility's internal rules. He was also sent to jail for this. The sources claim that Chris was caught having an inappropriate relationship with a female worker at the beginning of the month, but that is not why he was thrown out. As we all know, Chris was previously thrown out of a different facility for throwing a rock at his mom's car. Now, I don't know who this female employee is hooking up with Chris Brown while she's supposed to be working, but we actually never learn why he was kicked out. And I had done my research onto this, like why was he kicked out of the facility? It was not drug or violent related, and it wasn't for the relationship with the woman. And because he was kicked out, though, he then violated his probation for being kicked out, and that's what led to him going to jail. So he didn't commit any crime while in there, but the act of just being kicked out again got him in trouble. Fast forward to May 2015, Chris Brown allegedly hits a man in Las Vegas. Chris was briefly named in a misdemeanor battery case in Las Vegas, where a man claims that Chris hit him after an argument over a basketball game at a resort. The man declined to press charges, but again, it's just so stupid. Like, why is he over here at a resort watching a basketball game and then getting into a fight with someone over it? It's not that serious. Kicking off the new year in 2016, on January 2nd, Chris Brown was investigated by police. Again, in Las Vegas, a woman claims that she was beaten up by Chris and he stole her cell phone during a party at that same resort, the Palms Casino. The alleged victim had been battered by Chris, who at the same time took her cell phone. A verbal altercation took place as the victim was escorted out of the room by private security and into a hallway. 6 months later that same year, there's some shift in Chris's team. Now, this guy named Michael, his manager, was a big part of getting Chris back on track after the Rihanna thing. And you know, like that really awkward clip of him in the red shirt staring at the camera and reading off a teleprompter. Well, Michael was the guy that put that all together, trying to fix his reputation. Michael actually sued Chris. He filed a lawsuit claiming that Chris had violently attacked him in May of that year. Years later, the matter was settled out of court in 2019. I'm assuming that Chris paid him a large sum of money to just go away. And I wonder how many other people have just been paid off for silence. That same year in 2016, Chris was going through it. He was arrested on suspicion of assault with a deadly weapon. Following a 9-hour standoff with police at his LA mansion, a woman called 911 claiming that she was threatened with a gun. Now, charges were never filed, which I don't understand that. I mean, how do we pay for the 9-hour standoff with police if, like, we're not going to go charge this man for whatever crime's going on here? In April 2017, Chris then punches a photographer. This happens in Florida, where Chris I've actually never punched anyone or anything in my life before. Actually, that's a lie. When that guy attacked me at the bar in December, I did punch him and I ripped his toupee off. I went in. I'm not a violent person though, but he attacked me. If you guys have not seen that video, go watch my I'm attacked video with, like, you can see the cut on my chest or whatever. The alleged victim claimed that Chris attacked him because he was taking photos after Chris arrived at the venue for an after party showing. And again, I don't want you guys to get desensitized because there are so many crimes back to back and he just gets away with them. In 2018, Chris Brown was sued by an unidentified woman for SA. She claimed she was at a party in his home in 2017. The group used alcohol, drugs, threats, and the presence of weapons to intimidate and coerce and force unwilling female guests to perform intimate acts. Kicking off the new year in 2019, he was detained in Paris. Now, these were under potential charges of aggravated RAPE and drug infractions after a woman filed a complaint. Police reported that they detained Chris Brown Brown and 2 other individuals who were charged with these crimes. Chris Brown, of course, denied these claims. The charges were dropped, and he actually filed a defamation lawsuit against the woman. In June 2021, police came to Chris Brown's home because a woman called claiming that she was attacked by a male suspect, that he struck her in the back of the head. When police arrived, Chris Brown was no longer at the home, which is sketchy. He's on the run. That next year, Chris was sued by a woman claiming that he R-worded her and drugged her in Miami, suing him for $20 million, claiming that he did this on a yacht in 2020. The woman also detailed how 2 other encounters with Chris, including an instance in August 2021, where he became irate with her. She would not respond to his advances, his intimate advances, and that's when he got violent. As of recently, Chris Brown and his entourage were accused of beating 4 men backstage after a show in Texas. Quote, the unprovoked violence involved multiple strikes to the plaintiff's head and chest, and ultimately involved stomping on them while they were down. The brutal and violent assault participated in and was directed by Chris Brown severely injured all people involved. Now, most of those lawsuits that I just mentioned to you, they just end up getting settled out of court, which means, yeah, he pays the price financially, but it doesn't stop him from doing it again. He'll just keep making music, keep making more money, and just keep causing chaos. Right now, the makers of Quiet on Set are putting out a documentary all about Chris Brown. This is part of the reason why I wanted to make this video. The documentary, A History of Violence, will feature a testimony from an anonymous new victim who has not come forward publicly yet. We don't actually know if this person's identity will be revealed in the documentary. I'm assuming so, but let's go ahead and take a look at this trailer together.
For the young ladies, I mean, what's up, man? You got a girl or what?
Nah, I'm keeping my options open, so y'all be checking for me, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's the type of stuff will get you in trouble.
Well, true. It reads on the screen, most domestic violence offenders do not receive jail time. Well, look at Chris Brown, Exhibit A.
Chris Brown is the name. Get used to that right there.
Chris Brown's an amazing and talented musician, but let's call a thing a thing. He's an abuser of women, consistently, unapologetically.
Did Chris pull a gun on that girl? When is your hearing for your restraining order?
There's a long list of various different women.
Being pretty upset. Are you sure you don't really call victims advocates, have them come talk to you?
Who've accused Chris Brown of assaulting them.
Singer Chris Brown has been detained in an alleged case of rape.
He has an audience full of assault deniers.
I have to admit, and like no hate to anyone who watches my stuff, anytime I've covered Chris Brown, I've gotten a lot of people who come after me. And it's interesting like how we pick and choose who we don't like. It isn't so fascinating how everyone picks and chooses which celebrities are cool or not. Like if this one R words and attacks other people, it doesn't matter. Like I could go on a rant. I sound like HRH. I'm like, how do you guys just like make it make sense? I mean, I get it. No, I don't actually get it at all. Like, please comment below. Like, is it just your devout worship of this man that makes him somewhat ungodly? And not you guys know who I'm actually talking to, the ones that make up stories about me trying to threaten me, which I've had this recently with my Melanie Martinez video. Someone made a really disgusting story up about me because they're a fan of Melanie Martinez. Well, screw them.
No, I have not spoken about this matter publicly, but that's the only way that he can be stopped.
We will be watching. I want to hear what you guys think of this week's podcast episode in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed it. I loved sitting here and talking about this story, and I've got so many more coming. And if you guys have any topics you want me to do a deep dive into, here's my email, sloanwellknown@gmail.com, and I'll see you guys in next week's episode. Bye, guys.